Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. So, what do we got going on today? News, hotness, and everything else in between on the tabletop board game hobby scene. Everything you need to know that's come out in about the past week or so. Let me tell you what's on my radar. Let me tell you what I got my eye on, and everything else that you need to know. So, let's go. First up, Lost Ruins of Arnok is getting a second expansion, The Missing Expedition. 2 new leaders, solo, and a 2-player campaign style game, as well as a little bit of everything more. Now, you're going to give 2 new strategies offered by those leaders, new paths, new research tracks, as well as new artifacts, items, and assistance going to be available to you. It does require the original base game, obviously, but it's also compatible with the first expansion if you have that as well. The solo/co-op version of things, again, slight different twist on things. I'm interested to see what you can do with this because, again, we're seeing a little bit more of that thematic incorporation. We're just seeing it with Unmatched as well with their crowdfunding campaign that's ongoing currently. And I will also be talking about a cooperative mode for another game that we will get to in a minute here as a new recent announcement based on one that you're already very familiar with. And is that actually going to work? Can you actually make that work with a game like this from a worker placement deck building aspect? Now, again, it's not quite available for pre-order yet, and it's not going to be widely available until after Gen Con of this year. So you're potentially looking at still 6 months off in the future, but it's never too early to start generating hype. Speaking of generating hype, speaking of the last 2 years that we have been slowly getting the trickle feeds from this game series, we are getting later this year the latest edition, the latest version, the latest twist/mini spin on Great Western Trail. And Great Western Trail is getting the New Zealand edition, which we've known about for a while, but now there are more details. So what you're going to be getting with the scant few details that are out there are 2 new additions to the series, apart from the ones you saw in the original base game, as well as Argentina. One of them is going to be a whole new deck that you are going to be building cards from of different types as you're basically sheep herding with this one. And so there's going to be sheepdogs, fairy cards, bird cards that are going to allow you to have different ways of herding them in the first place. The other main difference is you're going to have also 4 different workers that are going to allow you to do your job a little bit better. It takes some influence from the original base game, the Rails expansion, and it has different sea routes that you're going to be able to navigate as 2 different ways to get your sheep where you want them to go. 2 other big twists that they talk about already that are going to give some spicy difference compared to its 2 predecessors, and maybe answers the question to you, why am I going to get this over the other 2, is that the end game scoring conditions are going to be different in this game. It's no longer when a worker market fills up. Instead, it's going to be triggered when the last bonus tile is placed on the market during a delivery. The other twist that's going to be going along with this is that halfway through the game, neutral tiles are going to be flipped over, which are going to offer new, completely different actions and effects that you're going to have to utilize and change your strategy of midway through. Do you like that? Can you handle that? Would you enjoy that? I know that's sort of divisive in terms of people who like this. They want their strategy, they want their perfect information, they don't want to have to pivot. Me, I like to pivot, so maybe this is the first Great Western Trail that I actually dare venture down. Now, coming right out of PAX East, we also have the announcement from Penny Arcade and the folks over at Direwolf, who are putting out now Clank, Acquisitions Incorporated, Legacy Version Series 2. Jerry and Mike, still at the top or near the top of my list of people I'd like to game with sometime in my lifetime. But what they're doing is they're bringing this to crowdfunding through Direwolf on May 2. The real question is going to be, with the last 2 legacy games we've seen on crowdfunding, Jurassic Park as well as Queen's Dilemma, the price point has been significantly jacked up compared to retail prices for said legacy games in the first place. And I mean, yes, this original game is much higher price point than its predecessors and cohorts at the retail scene already, even when it went that route. So how much more is it going to cost us on crowdfunding? And what's going to be the real reason to get it on crowdfunding? Queen's Dilemma had a little bit of exclusives in terms of a little bit of the gameplay expansion. Jurassic World had alternate, plastic miniatures that were... And so that's going to be really the make it or break it. And again, it's a great game. It's a fantastic game. I haven't actually played it, but I know it's been very well received by people as a whole, and it is perhaps a lot of people's favorite Clank game in addition. So is this one going to do as well? What's going to be the real difference? How is it going to be different? And again, the big elephant in the room, price point. Price point, price point, price point. Why buy now except for early, right? It's going to be interesting. I'm going to watch it very closely. I'm very intrigued. very, very intrigued. So that just reminds me, I need to go play Clank Catacombs to see how much I like that one first. So take that for what you will. There you go. Two other big things that we're gonna have to talk about, because there are gonna be massive, massive crossroads of IPs and game companies that you may recognize. And why are we talking about them? Well, because, you know, a little bit of a pun there. Crossroads, the next in the Crossroads games from Plaidhat was just recently announced, and this is called Freelancers. Congratulations, humanity's dead. You're free gigging it through the garbage of a broken economy and broken world using the Crossroads mechanics with a little bit of role-playing, worker placement, and this is the big divisive thing already people are crying about in the comments section in Reddit. There's gonna be an app. You're going to have to use an app in this Crossroads game, which frankly speaking isn't the worst thing I've heard, right? I mean, if you're anti-app, you know, that's fine. But it's one thing to be anti-engagement everything app. It's another thing to utilize a Forgotten Waters combined with Dead of Winter style system that has been relatively well proven in combination. So, and by combination, I mean separately. So what's the combination actually going to look like this time? I'm excited though, because Dead of Winter was one of my first pickups. It's still sitting in my collection back over there. I will still teach my kids that in the next year or two. And you know what? If they can do another successful thing on that side of things, now we're not going to talk about the expansions. Dead of Winter, for all intents and purposes, didn't have any expansions in my mind. So, you know, what else is it going to entail? I mean, it's a fantasy RPG-esque campaign experience. You know, rolled funky dice, 3 to 7 players. That's probably the other most divisive thing. 3 to 7 is an interesting player count. It's more Forgotten Waters in terms of the player count, more combo in terms of the actual mechanics of what we're knowing. Hundreds of branching paths, highly replayable campaign, mix and match, species, jobs, unique character, low commitment, no prep. Okay, I'm pretty much all in. This one's already on my wish list at the top of my things. I think they said sometime like Q3 of 2024. Speaking of Q3 of 2024, though, we're going to go over, and I covered this. I freaking covered this. I don't think it was this past year, but like even like the end of 2022, 2021. I know I spoke of this. FFG had one of those streams during the pandemic, and it sort of went under the radar. I covered it. They didn't reveal any details, but they finally released more details of the upcoming Dagger, Dagger, Marvel game from FFG. Now, what is that? Well, it kind of gives vibes of, well, people saying it's more like a pandemic, but realistically, with the standees, the double-sided characters with their alter egos that you're going to be getting, it has much more of an Eldritch Horror style vibe. And again, the other thing people are crying about in the comment section right now is that it's going to be sort of MSRP priced at $90. And they're like, $90 in standees. Now, again, if it was more of an Imperial Assault style Marvel game, that would be more interesting. But what you have here is, again, it's more like an Eldritch Horror where you're going to be stomping out the bad guys, and you have 10 different heroes that are going to be at your disposal to start out with just the core game. You're basically just teaming up with your allies to take on great threats, and the Defense Alliance for Global and Galactic Emergency Response elements really drive the game, they say, in terms of the alliance and emergency response side of things. You've got 3 different types of tokens you're going to be using: combos, power-ups, and primed. You get empowered, you can discard it to add a success, so it seems more, again, mechanically speaking, Eldritch Horror. And if you know anything about Eldritch Horror, you have about 17 expansions for that already. So if you're now combining the Marvel IP with it, hopefully it does better than the last Marvel IP game that they put out. Cough, Elder Sign, crappy version. Insurrection, I'm looking at you, X-Men Insurrection. I'm sorry. You died a horrible death and never got any support for a potential that was there but never fully utilized. And so I love the idea of this game, but execution is going to be key. And again, standees, people are already a little bit peeved about for the price point. So you're going to have to show me what you got, where your card's at, or I'm just going back to Marvel Champions like everybody else. Speaking of that, did you see the Marvel Champions update? Yeah, here's the latest Marvel Champions update. I talked about this in the last news video, right? They now went with just Beyond the Wall, and people are joking that this is going to be Beyond the Fourth Wall, breaking the fourth wall, i.e. Deadpool. But they've put up 2 character silhouettes at this point that people are presuming that one has to be Domino and the other one has to be Cable, which again leads everyone to presume this is going to be an X-Force style big box expansion coming up for Marvel Champions. And we're going to know, as you can see at the bottom of that text, if you can read that there, it says April 6th, we're going to know more. So shortly after this video airs, we will get some more information in this upcoming week, which is going to be super exciting, because if you're like me and you're really hoping for like a Psylocke or a Phantom X or Archangel that goes along with it, and I mean, you know, it's going to be freaking Apocalypse if it's the X-Force expansion, I'm really pumped. Now, if you could give me Age of Apocalypse like they did on the Marvel United Kickstarter, boom, baby, mic drop, pre-order, there you go. But it's also going to be interesting if this is X-Force, which everyone is predicting. Hopefully, again, they're going the new X-Force, not the old, like, Shatterstar, Cable, Cannonball sort of X-Force. That one, no, it's fine, but no. Hopefully they're giving us the new stuff, but then who's going to be the character packs in this one? Who's going to be other villain that's going to go along with it? Maybe like a Dark Beast, if you're going Age of Apocalypse, going over to the mainstream side of things. Again, that would be awesome. Freaking amazing. And I'm super pumped, as you can't tell, right? So totally didn't take any caffeine before this either. But next up, we also have another IP-based game that's coming out. Gale Force Games. Gale Force Games just recently announced that they are doing a new Star Trek-based game as well. Star Trek Away Missions. Now, the difference with this one is we're going to get more of a Star Trek miniature-based game here, and this is coming in July. You have two opposite landing parties that are going to be pitted against each other to score objective-based scenarios over 3 rounds in order to take home victory. You're going to have the Unimatrix as well as Riker's away teams, and something called Battle of Wolf 359, essentially, is what you're simulating. The miniatures? Okay, but give me the gameplay. Show me what you can do Gale Force 9 with this, and see if the gameplay holds up from a Star Trek non-nostalgic person like myself. Because if it does, again, I don't care what the IP is, give me a good game. But we're going to see what they can do with it because, yeah, it's Star Trek. So keep a close eye on it. Psst. I also know another secret Star Trek game that's coming out in the future, but I'm not allowed to talk about it yet. Spoilers. What else we got going on? Oh, yes, that's right. FFG just also announced a new big box to the Descent 4.0 version, Legends of the Dark, if you will, called The Betrayer's War. Now, they're calling this the second act, but they're also saying it's a massive expansion, 1 to 4 players with, again, elevated built-up terrain that's going to be present. New abilities, new enemies, and a new story, bigger, badder, and more omnipresent than before. Reminds me almost in a sense of like Myth and Myth Journeyman, where they said, okay, we're going to keep your heroes. We're just going to give them massive upgrades in terms of power and abilities and hero cards. Almost more like a Harry Potter Hogwarts battles, if you will. You know, you go through the years and you get the upgraded character cards each time. And so this is a second act in the series that you're going to get hero cards that are double-sided with abilities that are different on each side. And you're going to have new techniques, new keywords, and new, well, skills that you're going to be able to do in the world of Terranoff. More powerful monster variations, as well as a new stress mechanic that's going to, well, leave you a rather black, and also a new, there's going to be lots more enemies, new variations of things you've seen previously, harder, badder, worse, as well as a new stress mechanic that's going to leave you, well, perhaps rather flustered, to put a little bit more pressure on you in the first place. So this one is supposed to be allegedly hitting the stores in August, and if you're like me and you haven't even played the original, you still have some time to check this out and figure out whether or not this new version of Descent is more appealing to you than, say, other dungeon crawlers out there. Now, speaking previously, as I did at the very beginning, about new cooperative modes for games that you've already seen, a new expansion, a new version of Santorini, yes, that Santorini from Roxley, the redone, abstract, deluxified, plastified version of it, is coming back to crowdfunding this coming month in April on the 11th. And not only are we going to see a new expansion, we're also going to see a somewhat cooperative mode over a 6-based scenario-driven situation. I'm intrigued. I don't know, though, and it's a very, very nice, aesthetically pleasing version of things by the looks of it so far, and there's not a whole lot of other information about what it's actually going to do and how do you make an abstract game cooperative over based scenarios. I mean, obviously you have the situational asymmetric powers that go along with Santorini in the first place of the gods of the Greek nature, but in that case, how do you utilize that over a long term when otherwise the game premise is just get up to the 3rd highest level and win the game, right? I'm intrigued, but at the same time, I like Santorini a lot, but my wife was not a fan at all. So can this one break it as a cooperative? Some of the powers are definitely much more useful than others. Do you even use the powers? A lot of people are split on that too, where they just like the game without the powers, and the powers make it a little bit more unbalanced. And how unbalanced do you want your abstract games to be? So, again, it's going to be a very good test of the market. This was one of the first big successes for Roxley on crowdfunding. And the edition that they put out there is much more superior than the retail edition, which, frankly speaking, some of the plastic supports for this, as well as the more recent Ragnaroks from Grey Fox, is, you know, just kind of left people lackluster. And, you know, I, frankly speaking, hate my Santorini base game thing that holds it up. It's lopsided, it's uneven, it's poor production, and I need something better, but I also don't want to pay an arm and a leg for an abstract game that's significantly deluxified. Give me content and gameplay. Show me what you got, Roxley. I'm all in, baby. But we'll see where it goes, because you can also get Roxley most of the time on the secondary market. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Radlands. So take that for what you will. Now, next up here on the hotness and the news, if you're not familiar, Steamforged games, you probably are familiar, but if you're one of those that looked at Steamforged games and has gotten some of their content and like what they've put out in terms of Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, the other IPs, including Dark Souls, well, I have some good news for you. The issue with some of those, whether they were Dark Souls or Horizon Dawn Zero, is that you had some exclusivity, right? You had some exclusivity with the expansions, and they've been very hard to get on the secondary market. Well, SFG has announced that they're going to be doing what they're calling is opening the vault, essentially, sort of like a CMON time machine, if you will. But they're saying over in April, we're going to have about a 2 to 3 week span where they're going to be opening this vault and allowing you to basically pre-order on their website and get the expansions that you want in a small limited print run that's only going to be based off of how many people order it. So if you have any interest in some of their IPs that were more difficult to obtain prior to now, give this one a look-see. They have a sign-up and an email registration over on their website already. And if you didn't want those, well, that's okay too. But especially with a couple of their more recent games, God Tier, Monster Hunter, I'm liking what they're putting out recently. So take that for what you will. Are you a fan of the old ones, though, is the question. And just to be clear, that is running between April 4 and April 28. So you got plenty of time to figure out, well, whether or not you want them, right? 24 days, 3.5 weeks. Can't do the hours in my head. Otherwise, I'd spit that out to you or for you too right here on the camera. So, okay, what else we got going on? Well, the other game that caught my eye this week is we have Drachenhurter. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but this is an upcoming release at the end of 2023 or the Q3 of 23. This is an upcoming release, Q3 or Q4 from Cosmos. Herding dragons, casting magic spells to boost their value in a card-based game, going up against each other as magicians. I'm intrigued. How many dragons can you herd? Cast spells, gain cards, put cards back in the magic book, get them in your favor, and win. I have no clue any other details, but it's kind of a cool concept, and it's card-based, so color me intrigued as well. 2 to 4 players. So that came across my radar, and I thought I'd bring it to you guys as well. What else we got going on? Well, the hotness on Board Game Geek is relatively lame this week. Most of it is related to just crowdfunding projects. At the top, you have Earth, which is in the process of being completely fulfilled, in which I have my copy and have not played yet. By all accounts, people love it, and I will probably be one of those people as well too, so expect a review in the next month or so. Then we have Distilled, which is the brewery-based game where you're making alcohol. Take that for what you will, but it's also being in the process of delivered, just like Darwin's Journey, which is finally getting to backers in the near future. Apart from that, you still have your Frosthavens, your Dune Imperiums, but you're also having Revive, the acclaimed Euro-style game at the end of 2022 that many people have liked, as sort of an unlockable, scenario-driven, get all of your stuff at the end style of game, which is now finally either available for pre-order or for actual pickup, but it's going to cost you between $80 and $90 over here in North America. So is it worth it? Your mileage may vary. People like it, but then they also aren't as big a fan of it because it doesn't have as much perfect information as many heavy Euro gamers would prefer, or per the comments that I've read, at least at times. You still have your Brass Birmingham's classic art, as I mentioned previously, the retheme of a different game coming out from CMON that was a retheme already of an older game. Not your modern art, but something completely different. And then you also have at the very bottom, you have Hegemony, which is being brought to backers, as well as the recently funding Galactic Renaissance, the sequel to Innis. So that's sort of what you've got going on. You're also going to see your Elder Scrolls, obviously, since it just went live and blew up GameFound, as well as a few others over on GameFound like DEI from Ludus Magnus. Spoilers, that's actually a pretty freaking sweet game. I'll have a review of that one out soon shortly as well, but crowdfunding is all over the place. There's a lot of money being thrown around this week, and if you want to know more about those specific projects, tune in tomorrow. We'll have the complete run-up and rundown of all you need to know for all the new stuff that launched this week. Apart from that, not a whole lot else going on. I'm just sitting here playing with the Frosthaven coin, and I'll probably spin it on the table and see how long we can do that before the video ends. That's all I got. Stay classy. News and everything you want to know, all in one short, sweet segment. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want. 10K, please. I'm going for it, baby. See you around. Merchandise. Maybe soon.